Picture this, the year is 1939, the world is on the brink of chaos. Dark clouds of war were gathering over the globe. In Europe, fascist powers were on the rise. Germany, under the iron grip of Adolf Hitler, was rapidly expanding its borders. Italy, led by Benito Mussolini, was flexing its military muscles in the Mediterranean. Meanwhile, in the east, Japan's imperial ambitions were causing tremors of unease. This was a time of global tension, a time of uncertainty and fear. The League of Nations, the precursor to today's United Nations, was struggling to maintain international peace and security, but the aggressive maneuvers of these expansionist powers were making it increasingly difficult. The world watched in trepidation as Germany, Italy, and Japan formed the Axis powers, an alliance forged in the fires of militaristic ambition. The stage was set for a conflict of unprecedented magnitude. A storm was coming, one that would engulf the world in the flames of war. In September of that year, Germany's invasion of Poland marked the beginning of World War II. The democratic nations, led by Britain and France, declared war on Germany in response. As the war machine roared to life, countries around the world were drawn into the conflict, their futures hanging in the balance. Across the Atlantic, the United States, though initially maintaining a policy of isolation, was watching the events unfold with growing concern. It would not be long before they too were pulled into the maelstrom. In the Pacific, Japan's aggression was setting it on a collision course with the United States, a confrontation that would have far-reaching consequences. The world had become a chessboard, with nations as pawns in a deadly game of power and conquest. In the 6 years that followed, battles were fought on land, at sea, and in the air, from the deserts of North Africa to the beaches of Normandy, from the jungles of Burma to the icy waters of the Atlantic. As the world plunged into conflict, key battles would shape the course of this global war. Winter 1942, the city of Stalingrad becomes a battleground. A frosty landscape echoing with the sounds of gunfire and artillery, the city found itself in the grip of a brutal siege, as the German Wehrmacht sought to claim this strategic location. The Battle of Stalingrad was a ruthless game of cat and mouse, a savage dance of death in the frozen streets and blasted ruins of what was once a thriving city. This wasn't warfare as it was known. This was urban combat, close quarters and personal. Every building, every floor, every room, they were all individual battlegrounds claimed and reclaimed in fierce, desperate skirmishes. The German forces, initially successful, found themselves unprepared for the harsh Russian winter and the dogged determination of the Red Army. The tide began to turn as the Soviet forces, fighting for every inch of their homeland, started to push back against the invaders. The Germans, once the hunters, now found themselves the hunted, encircled in a city that had become a frozen hell. Starvation, frostbite, and relentless Soviet attacks whittled down the once mighty Wehrmacht. The Red Army, bolstered by reinforcements and growing in confidence, tightened the noose. And then, in early February of 1943, the unimaginable happened. The German Sixth Army, once seen as invincible, surrendered. The Battle of Stalingrad was over. The Red Army had won, but the victory came at a steep cost. The city of Stalingrad was left in ruins, its population decimated. And the casualty count on both sides was staggering, making it one of the bloodiest battles in human history. Yet the Battle of Stalingrad was more than just a battle. It was a turning point. The German forces, once seen as unstoppable, had been defeated. The myth of their invincibility was shattered. The Red Army, once on the back foot, was now on the offensive. The tide of the war had turned. The Battle of Stalingrad marked a turning point, signaling the beginning of the end for the Nazi regime. June 1942. The Pacific Ocean stages a battle that would decide the course of the war in the East. This grand spectacle of naval warfare was none other than the Battle of Midway. The Americans, having cracked the Japanese naval code, were prepared for the assault, turning the tide of the battle in their favor with a surprise attack. This audacious move saw the sinking of 4 Japanese aircraft carriers, the Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu. The loss was devastating for the Japanese, who could not replace these carriers for the rest of the war. The strategic implications of this victory were far-reaching. It was not just about the loss of carriers, but more importantly, it was about the loss of experienced pilots. The Battle of Midway marked a turning point in the Pacific War, changing the momentum of the conflict. The Battle of Midway was a crushing blow to the Japanese Navy, shifting the balance of power in the Pacific. The dawn of June 6, 1944, the largest seaborne invasion in history, is about to commence. Imagine a scene of unprecedented scale. Over 5,000 vessels sailing across the English Channel, carrying more than 150,000 men. This was Operation Overlord, better known as D-Day, the monumental invasion of Normandy that would mark a turning point in World War II. The strategic planning was meticulous, the execution demanding. The objective? To breach Hitler's formidable Atlantic Wall, an extensive system of coastal fortifications stretching from Norway to Spain. 5 beaches, codenamed Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword, were the chosen points of attack, each assigned to divisions from the United States, the United Kingdom, and Canada. The beach landings, however, were far from a walk in the park. The men faced a barrage of machine gun fire, mortars, and artillery from the well-entrenched German defenses. Omaha Beach in particular became a brutal killing ground, with the American forces suffering heavy casualties. Yet, in the face of such overwhelming odds, the courage and resilience of these soldiers shone through. By the end of the day, a foothold had been established on all 5 beaches. The Allies had landed more than 150,000 troops in France, but this was just the beginning. The invasion set the stage for a fierce and grueling campaign to liberate Western Europe from Nazi control. It was a task that would take another 11 months and countless lives. Yet despite the immense cost, D-Day was a critical turning point. It signaled to the world that the tide of war was changing, that the Allies were on the offensive, and that they were willing to pay the price for freedom. This was not just a military operation, it was a statement of intent, a challenge thrown directly at the heart of Hitler's fortress Europe. D-Day was a daring gamble that paid off, marking the beginning of the end for Hitler's fortress Europe. July 1943. The fields of Kursk are ready for the largest tank battle in history. The winds of war have brought us to the Eastern Front, where the German Wehrmacht and the Soviet Red Army are preparing to engage in a battle of epic proportions. The vast flat fields of Kursk, stretching as far as the eye can see, are about to become the stage for a battle of steel behemoths. Over 2 million men, 5,000 tanks, and 5,000 aircraft are poised to clash in what will become a pivotal moment in World War II. The fighting is intense, brutal, and unyielding. The air is thick with the smell of oil, gunpowder, and the deafening roar of tank cannons. Yet, amid all this chaos, the Soviet forces stand their ground, demonstrating a strategic mastery that slowly turns the tide in their favor. The Battle of Kursk was a decisive Soviet victory that further weakened the German forces. The fields of Kursk, once a peaceful vista, now bear the scars of a battle that changed the course of history. April 1945, the final major offensive in Europe is underway. The Battle of Berlin, a pivotal moment in World War II, engulfs the city in a blaze of fierce urban warfare. The city, once a symbol of Nazi power, now stands as the last bastion of Hitler's crumbling Reich. The Red Army, eager to avenge years of bitter struggle, launches an all-out assault. Their determination fuels their advance, but the city's defenders, a mix of seasoned soldiers, Hitler Youth, and the elderly, fight back with a desperate tenacity. The battle becomes a brutal, house-to-house fight, with each side refusing to give an inch. Despite their staunch resistance, the Third Reich's forces are steadily pushed back, their lines collapsing under the relentless Soviet onslaught. With the fall of the Reichstag, Hitler's reign is effectively over, and the Third Reich crumbles into dust. The war in Europe is coming to an end. The Battle of Berlin marked the end of Hitler's reign and the collapse of the Third Reich. The echoes of these battles still resonate today. The pivotal confrontations of Stalingrad, Midway, Normandy, Kursk, and Berlin each played a crucial role in shaping the course of World War II. They were not just clashes of armies, but turning points that defined our world. They brought an end to the darkness of tyranny, marking the beginning of a new era. These pivotal battles not only shaped the outcome of World War II, but they also forever altered the course of human history.